Hey, welcome back to your Good Life Now podcast. And if this is your first time, welcome. I am Frankie Martinez, and we are in season 1 talking about life purpose. And today we are going to answer the grand question of what if I miss the will of God? The will of God in and of itself sounds so intimidating, and the thought of even missing it is even more intimidating. And I think that's why I get this question a lot of people asking, what should I do? How do I know if I'm gonna, how do I know if it's the will of God? How do I know if I'm gonna miss the will of God? All these questions can seem overwhelming, and honestly, it could lead many people to not take action because we're afraid of making the wrong decision or missing it or not honoring God in that sense. So first of all, let me start with this. Let me ease some pressure off you and say it is so hard to miss the will of God. Do you know how hard it is to really miss it? I mean, as if God didn't account for our humanity, our mess ups, our bad habits. God knew all these things ahead of time and still has a plan for your life, still has a will for your life, still has a purpose for your life. And the fact that we get so afraid of missing it, well, we got to first of all realize that God is bigger than us. His plans are bigger than us. And we need to realize that it's so hard to actually miss it. And in actuality, we got to realize that God knows us better than we know ourselves. And he loves us and wants us to walk in his purpose and in his ways. And so just knowing that automatically in and of itself would help us to alleviate that pressure of we're going to miss it. Because honestly, it's super hard. Honestly, even if you... Okay, let's go and answer that question. Can you even miss the will of God? I would say probably if you really want to. If you're intentionally resisting God, intentionally rejecting God, trying your hardest to miss it. But even then, there are too many stories of people living like that and end up encountering the love and the power of God, and their life changes around anyway. So I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I'm saying if you listening to this podcast are afraid that you're going to miss the will of God because you really want to be in the will of God, then you're way overthinking it. You're good. I wouldn't even worry about it, because the fact that you're afraid you're going to miss it means your heart is in the right place. And if your heart is in the right place, God's not going to let you miss it just because of some little minor thing. So I've heard it preached before by a pastor saying that it's kind of like your GPS. If you get off route, well, what does your GPS do? When you miss your turn, you miss your exit, does it say, great, you're screwed, it's over, too bad for you? No, your GPS, it just reroutes. It just changes directions and leads you right back to the same place. Yeah, it might take you a little longer. You might, go on different roads, but it's ultimately just going to reroute you. And that's the same thing that God does with his purpose for your life. Just because, maybe you make a decision that wasn't the best, does that mean that your life purpose is over? You missed the will of God? No, God's way more powerful than a GPS system. And so he can easily reroute your future, reroute your life, your decisions to get you right back on course where you're living your good life, fulfilling your purpose, and doing what you're created to do. So first of all, I just want us to help to get rid of that fear. Get rid of the fear of missing the will of God, because the fact that you're even afraid of it means that you honor and you have a reverence toward God. And so you shouldn't be afraid of missing the will of God, right? So that's good. That's the first thing, not being afraid of missing the will of God. But so then what do we do? Now that I'm not afraid of missing it, I know he can reroute me. What do I do right now? What's my next step? How do I take action towards the will of God, which is going to lead to my fulfillment, right? So, and God gave me this great verse that I'm going to share with you that I know it's going to inspire and empower you, and it's going to give you some very practical what to do right now, solutions for you if you're questioning or trying to find the will of God for your life. It's in the Bible. It's in 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 6 and 7. I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. It says, the Spirit of the Lord will come powerfully upon you, and you will prophesy with them, and you will be changed into a different person. Now, the only two things there we need to really pay attention to is the Spirit of God coming on you and you being changed, okay? Now, here comes the breakthrough. You guys ready? This is the breakthrough verse right here. It says in verse 7, once these signs are fulfilled, drum roll, do whatever your hand finds to do, for God is with you. Now I'm going to say that last part one more time. It says, do whatever your hand finds to do, for God is with you. In other words, do what's in front of you. Do what you can right now. I'm telling you, if you're wondering what the will of God, what's this? Stop thinking of this grand picture in the end, this end result, and start thinking of what's in front of you. What's in front of your hands? What can you do right now? And does that mean you do everything? Anything that you do is going to be perfect? No, what it means is two things. First, the part about the Spirit of the Lord coming on you and being changed means that we need to first submit ourselves to God. If you submit your heart to God, just like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane before he was led to the cross, what did he say? He got on his knees, he cried out, and he said, God, not my will, but your will be done. In other words, he gave God his heart's desires. He gave God his dreams, his goals, his aspirations. He gave God his heart and says, God, I'm giving it to you. I'm surrendering it to you. It's yours. And now after we do that, after we submit our hearts to God and say, God, I'm giving this to you. I'm giving you, Lord, this is what I want to do. This is my dream. This is my goal. This is what I feel I'm on earth for. This is what I feel my desire is. This is what I know you made me to do this. But before you do anything, just give it to God. You got to surrender it to God. You got to submit it to God. And once you surrender it to God and say, God, I'm giving this to you. This is what I want to do. But nevertheless, just like Jesus said, what? Not my will, but your will be done. And so you surrender it to God. Now, after you surrender it to God, the verse says, once these signs are fulfilled, in other words, once you surrender your heart, your dreams, your goals, your desires to God, then after that, do whatever your hand finds to do after you submit to God. Because what happens is you're going to find out that once you submit it to God, God does his miracle transforming power within you. He begins to change your heart's desires. This another verse in the Bible, Proverbs 21:1, it says, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, like the rivers of water. He turns it wherever he wishes. In other words, once you surrender your heart to God, he begins to turn your heart. He can cause you to desire things that you should desire, to stop desiring things you shouldn't be desiring. One more verse. It says in Philippians chapter 2, verse 13, it says, for God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. What a powerful verse, right? It says God is already working in your heart. What is he doing in there? What's he doing in your heart? He's giving you the desire to do what pleases him. So this is the key. This is going to unfold the mystery of the will of God and empower you to take action towards your dreams right now. And what is it? It says first submit your heart to God. Once you do that, God's going to start working in your heart. He's going to give you the desires of your heart. That verse in Psalms doesn't just mean that God's going to give you your wishes. It means he's going to actually give you what you're desiring. What you're desiring in your heart is going to change once you submit yourself to God. And then once you have already done that, submitted to God, release it to him, the desires that are now springing up inside of you, the desire that you have, guess what? Do that. That's the will of God for your life. That's what you need to be doing. You need to be doing that new desire that's coming inside you. Or maybe it's an old desire that passed through the filter of the will of God, of submitting it to God. Submit it to God first, and whatever makes it through that filter, that's of God. Because when you submit it to God, guess what? You're letting go of your own desires, your greed, your selfishness, all these other things. We're dropping that down. And you submit it, you lay it on the cross, you kill it, crucify it there in a sense, and then whatever still rises up, that's the will of God for your life. That's what you need to do right now. So don't worry about this grand, master plan. Just do what's in front of you. What an amazing thing. It says, do it in front of you because God is with you. I'm telling you, that verse encouraged me. It changed my life. It empowered me. I'm going to tell you something. It helped me start this podcast. That's how I actually got this verse. I had this idea to start this podcast. I'm going to use it to encourage people, to empower people, right? And then one morning I was praying. I said, God, should I really do this? Is this something that you really want me to do? Is this something you're going to use? It's going to honor you. That's going to really empower and change people's lives. So one Saturday morning I was praying and I said, God, I give this podcast to you. Really show me if you want me to do this or not. And guess what? That verse is the very verse that popped in my mind. And God says, submit, so just like you submitted to me. He says, do what your hand finds to do, for I am with you. So I'm stepping out in faith and I'm living my good life and I'm encouraging you and I'm sharing this verse with you. So guess what? It'll break those limitations off your mind. Get rid of that fear of missing the will of God. Step into action and know that once you submit to God, do what God puts in front of you, because that's what he's going to bless. And guess what? Does that mean that's your end result, that's your life purpose? No, that's what you need to do today. And if you do it today, it's going to lead to something greater. It's going to open more doors. And pretty soon you're going to be living your good life to its fullest potential. But it's never going to happen if you don't start right now doing what God put in front of you. The desire you have that passed through the filter of the cross is what God's going to use to empower your life. So that's awesome. I hope that encouraged you to start living your good life. I want to encourage you to shoot me some questions and comments. I'll be answering some of your questions right here on this show. And of course, if this has unlocked something for you, maybe broke something in your heart and mind, set you free and empowered you to start living your good life now, I want you to do something amazing. I want you to share this message with somebody that God has brought into your mind that you know needs to hear this. That friend or relative that came to your mind and said, man, they could really benefit from hearing this message. I want you to share it with them. Subscribe, comment, and I will see you next time. Cheers to your good life.
Good life. I'm just living that good life. I'm just living that good life. I'm just living that good life. Good life.